I traveled to Cincinnati, Ohio to meet up with Daniel Epstein, a marketing and innovation consultant based in Toronto, Canada. Searching to fill the God-sized hole in his own life, Daniel created Portraits in Faith, a project which combines his passions of global travel and photography with helping others heal and bringing people of different faiths and cultures together. I'm Tai Chi. At 19, I was a superstar and I was lost inside. I left it all behind, switched continents, and started all over. Years later, I found myself lost again, this time in the American dream. This is a story about awakening, about living the life you were created for, about going inward and discovering the joyous and purposeful person you and I are both meant to be. This is Waking Up in America. I've been waiting so long for this moment. Daniel, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I was on your show, Portraits in Faith, and when I first heard about you through a friend, I went and watched the videos and these beautiful stories, and I spent several hours crying, in tears, realizing just how beautiful it is what you've done, collecting these stories of faith that prove to us and show to us how connected we all are. And now you are on my show. Thank you. So let's set up for our audience. What led you to the point where you started with the Portraits in Faith?
Well, I think it's best summarized what a psychiatrist once said to me. He was referring me to another psychiatrist, and he described me as a young man who wasn't happy about much.
Aww.
So I think my story starts with a lot of false beliefs about myself that I think many people have. Some of my false beliefs were I shouldn't have been born, I was a mistake, I'm a victim, nothing in life is fair, how much longer? I was never really suicidal, but I often thought about death, and I think a lot of how I felt was, how much longer? Please, how much longer?
Wow.
And I think that there's nothing so unusual, unfortunately, about that. I think that the way my story played out was a lot of failed relationships, a lot of me using other people, particularly women in relationships, I somehow thought that if I could surround myself with other people, I would keep from going crazy. And of course, it's hard to love somebody who doesn't accept themselves or love themselves. So I think I was just a pretty miserable, self-focused person for a long time.
And what was your life situation at that time?
Well, I'm a professional. I had gotten my business degree, my master's. I was working in a big company, so I was trying to be successful. But I found that even my interpersonal relationships at work suffered to some degree in the same way that my personal relationships did.
And we hear this so many times. And on my show, it seems every guest, I have a lot of guests who say, and whose lives looked perfect on the outside. It's what we, if you check all the marks, it's there. Why aren't you happy?
I think that I have a theory. Now in my professional work, I'm a marketing consultant, and I do work with cognitive and behavioral science. And, unique to human beings is the prefrontal cortex of the brain, and that's it's the part of our brain that plans and can think about the future. Animals don't think about the future. And I figure that the neuroses that comes from the prefrontal cortex, the over-worrying about the future, the anxiety about the future, the depression about the past, the things that this prefrontal cortex uniquely allows us, it comes with this neuroses that can only be overcome by the spiritual journey, even the non-religious spiritual journey. And that, I believe that there are two false beliefs in life that summarize this whole story of what ails us. And I think that is the belief that we are not enough and the belief that we won't have enough. And I think everything's a variation on that story. And I had both of those, and I still struggle with those. Am I enough? Will I have enough for the journey?
Universal thought. I don't want to say desire. but
Craziness.
Craziness.
Personal,
exactly.
universal craziness. And I believe that some kind of journey, for me, a spiritual journey, was necessary to examine those false beliefs and call them out and say, that's not true. I actually am more than enough. And you know what? I've got a lot.
Yes.
I've got a lot.
So were you, in your career, in your path, was it something that you designed, or was it influenced by your parents or by the society, or how did you end up in this place?
Well, professionally, I ended up there probably because of the fear of not having enough or not being enough. So I have a very analytical mind. My father was a professor, and I think my mind is like his mind. And I did very well in professional subjects. Was a CPA first, and then had my MBA in international marketing. I think I was gravitated to these organizations that were up or out, promote from within, because it was a way for me to externally demonstrate that I was enough.
Right.
Or that I would, and those professions paid better than my parents' teaching professions, so that gave me the sense that I would have enough. Now, I have to say, I mean, those fears of not being enough or having enough do have some payoffs. Right? I pushed myself to be successful in my career.
Yes, and what happens so often is that we disconnect from the spiritual, from the true value, where true value is. And so much emphasis becomes on this external validation and external, I have enough, I matter enough to this company. You know, my bank account shows that I am valuable, that I have worth. And that has been a challenge for where we are. And you know, you have places in the world, obviously, where people are saying, what are you talking about? I don't have even basic security. Even that basic need is not covered. And maybe there's more spiritual connection. And I've seen that in your work, which we'll talk about when we come back. Talking to Daniel Epstein, marketing consultant and founder of Portraits in Faith. And so we're at the point where, okay, so you have a great successful career, and you're at the point where, like I said, you're saying, when is it gonna stop?
It mainly showed up for me in relationships. I think I really struggled to know what I wanted and to be honest with other people about what I wanted. So I, what is somewhat affectionately or unaffectionately referred to as taking hostages. I would be in these long relationships that never went anywhere, and I felt over time that I was lying about my intentions in relationships. And I went through a series of these in a short period of time. And I remember being at breakfast one morning with a friend of mine in Boston, and I just said, a couple of events had happened, but I just said to her, this friend of mine, I said, Jody, I need help, and I don't know what it is. I need help. And I say that was my first authentic prayer.
You asked for help.
Yeah.
You actually showed your vulnerability. You admitted to another human being that you needed help.
And it wasn't even necessarily just to my friend that I was saying it. I think it was just I think I was just tired. A saying that friends of mine have is I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I just felt, in a way, it was a hitting bottom for me, but it was more of an emotional hitting bottom.
Yes.
I wasn't an alcoholic in the
Right.
gutter or a drug addict with needles in my arm, but I was just like that, but inside emotionally. And I felt like something needed to change. And I feel like that's when shifting began to happen in my life. I wanted to heal. You know, it's interesting. I once was given a hand analysis by someone, a friend of mine who was into palmistry and hand analysis, and the teacher said, "Oh, you want to heal?" And I said, "Heal myself or others?" And she said, "You want to heal. You want to reclaim every part of yourself, and in so doing, you won't be able to help but heal others."
Oh, beautiful.
And I think that, you know, so what happened for me, there was no big thunderclap at that moment when I said that to my friend Jody, but what happened is I feel like the universe started making available to me healers and ways of healing, therapy, different healers I've worked with, group work, and I started to realize that I was the source of my problems.
And on your website, Proportions in Faith, in your bio, in your story, you mentioned that you grew up Jewish.
Yes.
So you had some foundation, some...
You know, I had religious foundation, and I was quite active in the Jewish community. I've worked in the Jewish community, but I can't say that I had a spiritual base. I don't think I really ever understood spiritually what it was I knew religiously. And so in some ways I had to start from scratch. And also I've always believed in many paths. I grew up Jewish in the South. I got very exposed to the affect, the praise the Lord, very outward affect of African American Christianity. I was at camps with African Americans, Catholics, Christians in the 70s, just at the end of the peace era, and I've always believed in many paths. So when I came upon this time where I needed spiritual help, I didn't just look to my Judaism, I looked anywhere I could find it. Because as that teacher said, I wanted to heal, I wanted to reclaim every part of myself.
Okay, so your waking up moment is a stretch over time.
Yes.
Where you're gently waking up.
Yes. Actually, one of my favorite, I have a couple of favorite monks. One of them is Anthony DeMello, who is no longer alive, but he says, the first thing you need to know about waking up is you don't want to wake up.
Oh, powerful.
It was shown to me that I was not a very grateful person, and I had so much to be grateful for. And so I think that was the first disease that had to be cured. Something I still struggle with today, whether or not I am fully grateful for all that is in my life.
Yeah, interesting you say that, because gratitude is actually one of the responses that that's really accessible to all of us, and it's easy to start small. You know, you can be grateful for your cup of tea. You don't have to. You can be grateful for a tree outside that doesn't even belong to you. These little things we can be grateful for, which then teach us and help us to get better at gratitude, and gratitude shifts us toward that awareness, that waking up, live in that gratitude, then we are accessing the grace. You know, we're aware of the grace in our lives.
I believe that too, and that's why I think it's not necessary to believe in God to be on a spiritual journey, because I believe that gratitude is the essence that overcomes the craziness of the prefrontal cortex. I believe that, as you just said, I believe that gratitude is the grace that permeates our lives regardless of whether we believe in God or not.
And it's such a connecting point. It can really connect the non-believer, the secular, and really, truly, religious people. We can all, that's the point, gratitude and grace, in which we truly connect.
Absolutely.
So when we come back, we'll talk about now what happened after you've awakened.
Sounds great.
that you have to know about waking up is that you don't want to wake up. Isn't that so true? I am not a morning person. I do not like to wake up. But when you know that it's a part of waking up, that change is hard, that this is going to be, nobody ever said it was easy. But when you accept that this is the part of the journey and a gift, and you become grateful for that very pain that you have to go through as you're waking up, that then, brings us to the grace and this, and really everything, like I've heard somewhere, the naked tree becomes this magic, this beautiful gift that you don't see a naked tree, you see the change of season. So now you're there in the process. And how did you then come up with Portraits in Faith? How does that?
I needed to feel that something was bigger than me. I needed to, whether it was honoring my parents and not criticizing them, but honoring them and saying that they were bigger than me, whether a divine spirit was bigger than me, I needed to allow myself to be small. And so I started praying on my knees, and I've done that twice a day for, I don't know, let's call it 10 years.
How did you get to that idea?
You know what? I just heard about people hitting their knees, and people who didn't know how to pray, which I was certainly someone like that, just start with please in the morning and thank you at night. So I've adopted many different practices from many different faith traditions, non-religious traditions. One of the things that really helped me at one time, given that I said to you I felt like a mistake for a long time, was I learned from a shaman friend that in the shamanistic tradition, it takes the decision of 7 ancestors for a child to be born. So there could be no mistakes in that universe. So I just picked and chose from different traditions anything that would help me put myself back together and see through the lies, the spiritual lies I told myself, that I wasn't enough and that I wouldn't have enough. And as part of that journey, I was once at a summer photography workshop where you had to come up with an idea and start shooting right away. And the idea of Portraits in Faith came to me. And it wasn't so unusual. I've done a lot of interfaith work in my life, being Jewish from Atlanta. But the idea of this project, that I would go interview people about their spiritual journeys and make a black and white portrait of them, was born at a workshop in Maine. I believe it was over 10 years ago now.
And I mean, these portraits are beautiful. The stories are just, really enlightening. When you see so many different faiths and backgrounds, and yet you recognize, what's so unifying about all of them.
The most spiritual thing I've ever seen is not even from my own project. It was an IMAX movie about the Hubble telescope, where they show you these images of millions of galaxies, even beyond and all of a sudden the unfathomability of the divine became more, in some ways, more understandable to me. That the universe is infinitesimal. It's just beyond any comprehension, and yet we are here. In fact, there's one of my favorite little stories from Judaism is that in every person's pocket, each pocket, we should have a different slip of paper. In one pocket, it should say, "For my sake, the world was created." And in the other pocket, it should say, "From dust I was created, till dust I'll return." And we are great beyond any understanding, and we are infinitely small and insignificant at the same time. And I think that the spiritual journey for me has been a balance of my greatness and my insignificance, and just to know that is the journey.
Oh, and then you have such wonderful platform, wonderful way of passing that on through your project, Portraits in Faith.
And Portraits in Faith is 450 black and white portraits and stories from 27 countries. I was very lucky to have a global job with a big company, so I've traveled the world many times over, And I would hire producers as I went to each of these cities and said, I'm going to be in your city or your country on these days. Could you please find 4 to 5 people a day that I could interview about their spiritual journey and make a portrait of them? And at the beginning, this was not about publication. This was my own healing. And I figured, because I believed in many paths, I figured if I could just hear people talk about their divine journey, their transformations, that I could draft off of those and it would somehow heal me. And I don't know if I could have articulated that at the beginning, but that's just what happened.
Right.
And so it felt good. I felt more and more whole the more of these stories and people I met. Very intimate connection. I mean, I don't think there's anything more intimate than one's spiritual story.
Yes.
And I just loved doing it. And so I healed as I interviewed people. Then 2 years ago, I made the decision at much urging to begin sharing it. And I was very lucky to get guidance from Ken Burns, the award-winning documentary filmmaker. And he said, have the courage to say this isn't a film. And, you know, everybody wants to make a PBS film.
Right, because it was originally was supposed to be a documentary.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But, you know, if you have 450 people, you don't make a documentary. So I wanted, and I didn't want anyone to end up on the cutting room floor. So we started a website. And so we build the website over time. One person's portrait is added to the website every week. And that's portraitsinfaith.org. And people can sign up for Portrait of the Week, or you can look through the 60 or so that we have posted so far.
Yes, and thank you, really thank you for doing that and for making it available for us. And one thing I noticed, you know, when I was, you interviewed me and then a year and a half later I'm watching it, previewing it, and I'm thinking, but I've grown. I already see the changes. And so, you know, it's a moment because the spiritual journey is always expanding, right, always evolving, and you know, in Catholic tradition, that's growing closer to God. But it's beautiful to just see these moments when these people were at the time that you capture them. That's what portrait is about, right?
Yes, and you know, I think the tough thing can be realizing that if you believe in this approach to life, if you choose this spiritual approach to life, then every part of life is on the spiritual journey. Yes. Even when we weren't where we ultimately wanted to be, even the person who I might judge who is doing behaviors X, Y, and Z. And I have to remember to bless everyone on their journey. And some people may not even like that language. They're like, I don't want your blessing. But I still need to honor their journey and know that they are exactly where they're supposed to be on the journey.
I like to connect music with the stories of my guests because music to me represents an expression or maybe sometimes even a trigger for opening up your heart, your awareness, and you know, allowing music to inspire and trigger the awakening. Or maybe if you already started to wake up, but you don't want to really wake up, you know, then music helps you get out of bed, right? So, yeah, so I asked you to share something significant to you.
Yeah, I was brought up singing Hebrew melodies on the Sabbath and leading, you know, I was very active in youth group. And so one song I really love is Eli Ata V'Yodecha Elohai Aromecha, which means you are my God, and I'm grateful to you. You are our God. We will praise you. And again, for me, that's not an old white man with a beard and a chair. It's right. When I say Eli Ata V'Yodecha, it means I'm grateful for it all. I'm grateful for all that is. And by the way, I should mention, given my history with relationships, that this journey has led me to my beautiful and wonderful wife, Heidi, getting married for the first time at 51. But it's just a blessing. I have 2 stepsons. So I don't know how this story ends, but so far, it's better than I ever thought possible. And so this is what I'm grateful for, is that the journey has taken me to a place I never expected. So I'll sing this simple tune for you. Eli ata ve'oidecha, Elohai aroi memecha, Eli ata ve'oidecha, Elohai aroi memecha. Eli ata ve'oidecha, Elohai aro memecha, Eli ata ve'oidecha, Elohai aro memecha.
Thank you for who you are, and not for what you're doing, but what your being is bringing to us.
Thanks so much.
To replay and share Daniel's story and check out many more, visit us at wakingupinamerica.net and do visit portraitsinfaith.org. Until next time, thank you so much for watching.